Hi, I'm Brett Parker, Multimedia Specialist at National Provisioner Magazine. And today we're highlighting the Georgia Beef Board, which has recently rolled out a unique educational experience for kids with cattle education trunks, which are cases of goodies meant to enlighten the youth about how the meat industry works. Here to speak with us is Caitlin Jackson, checkoff program coordinator of the Georgia Beef Board. Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Super happy to be here and share this really awesome project that we've had completed this year.
Well, can you explain the initial inspiration behind how the cattle education trunks came into existence?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Cattle Education Trunks is really a collaborative project put on by the Georgia Cattle Women's Association, Georgia Beef Board, and Extension, and also Georgia Farm Bureau. And a lot of the other commodity boards in the state of Georgia have an educational resource that is housed within the different Georgia Farm Bureau districts. And they kind of range in what those bags look like. And so kind of using that as a kind of quote template, the Georgia Cattle Women's Association board, specifically their president, Haley Partain, and vice president, April Edwards, who are also county extension agents at the University of Georgia Extension, they started this brainchild and developed what became the Cattle Educational Trunks. And so this has been almost a 2-year process in collecting all the curriculum and resources and materials and lessons to put together what is the Cattle Trunks, which is collectively 52 different lessons and activities for grades K through 12.
So you kind of touched on this, but can you describe the contents within the trunks and how they're meant to educate children?
Yes, so the trunks are kind of divided into 3 different sections. 1, beef, 2, dairy, then 3, beef and dairy. And there's some overlapping because there are a lot of similarities between beef cattle and dairy cattle. But the lessons range depending on what they're for. So like I mentioned, K through 12 is the diversified audience that can range. And so these are ready-made lessons. And so a teacher will get the trunk. They can scroll through the lessons. The lessons are on a flash drive, but then there's also a hard copy of all the different lessons. And that way teachers can just have something in their hands and browse through and make copies of directly or print directly from the flash drive. And there's really just so much diversity in all the different lessons offered, on the beef cattle side, from actually raising beef cattle to the meat science, for dairy, dairy cattle production, dairy products, and then the overlapping would be kind of like their biology.
Now, I understand the trunks contain a survey that the recipients can fill out and return to the board. What's the most interesting revelations you've discovered with this survey data?
The trunks are a very new project, and they literally just kind of rolled out in April of this year. The way that we distributed the trunks is we actually went and partnered with Georgia Farm Bureau at their Office Managers Conference, and with their Ag in the Classroom coordinator, presented the trunks to all the different office managers, because a lot of those ladies and gentlemen actually have a dual role. They'll go out and do Ag in the Classroom lessons. And so that was our first really hands-on opportunity to meet with instructors for this, for the cattle educational trunks. And they are just really, really excited. For several districts already have a long waiting list. With school ending kind of in May here in Georgia, there hasn't been a ton of opportunity for teachers and these educators to get the lessons as executed this semester. But May was Beef Month, and we did have a couple of folks that were able to check out the trunks. And so far, the surveys that have come back is just really positive, and the kids being able to interact is really great. And also, getting the right research-based information into teachers' hands for them to execute those STEM lessons is just really critical to our mission.
Well, what are the most important lessons that you hope young people take away from this experience in regards to the meat industry?
Personally, I think there's so much opportunity to educate kids about how beef cattle gets to the pasture, to the plate, if you will. And so this is just a really great opportunity to educate kids throughout their time, because a lesson that we would teach a kiddo in kindergarten is going to look very different than teach a kiddo that we would teach like a senior in high school. And so being able to have an age appropriate lesson to make them understand how much producers care for their cattle and the product that eventually, gets on their plate. And so that is a big part of the curriculum is, how beef cattle are raised. And our hope is that, kids come out of that lesson understanding that beef comes from cows and that doesn't just come from the grocery store.
Well, where online can one find out more about receiving cattle education trunks?
Yeah, we have a georgiabeef.org is our website. We have an education tab that has lots of different classroom resources and different information for different lessons that you can have in addition to the links for the cattle educational trunks.
Fantastic. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Caitlin Jackson of the Georgia Beef Board, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for watching.